right, so we're going deep today, like really deep. We're talking ancient mysteries, secret societies, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah, it's a topic that's kind of always fascinated people, right?
Yeah.
Like this blend of history and myth and symbolism. It's just kind of perplexing in a way that makes you want to know more.
Totally. And to guide us through this whole thing, we've got this YouTube video, and let me tell you, it's wild.
Oh, yeah.
Full of twists and turns, and we're going to break it all down. But first, the Holy Grail. What's the real story behind this legendary thing?
Well, most people, when they think of the Grail, they think of like the cup from the Last Supper, right?
Right.
But here's the thing. That idea, it doesn't pop up in writing until way later, like over 1,000 years after the actual event.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's more tied to those Arthurian legends, you know?
So the Grail as a physical object from the Last Supper. Probably more fiction than fact. But does that mean the Grail doesn't exist at all?
Not necessarily, no. There are actually a couple of real-world contenders out there, and they've caused a lot of debate, let me tell you.
Right.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Among those who are, like, really into the Grail, you know?
So where are these contenders hiding?
Both of them are in Spain.
Interesting.
Yeah, which is kind of interesting in itself. One is called the Chalice of the Infanta Doña Urraca.
Wow, that's a mouthful.
Right, it's in Leon. And the journey this thing supposedly took, it's pretty wild.
What do you mean?
So it was supposedly stolen from Jerusalem during the Crusades,
Oh, wow.
taken to Cairo, and then, get this, gifted to a Spanish king as a peace offering.
What a history. What about the other one?
The other one is the Santo Cales, and it's in Valencia. And this one is a beautiful agate cup.
Okay.
And it's thought to have belonged to St. Mark the Evangelist.
No way. One of the apostles.
Potentially, yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
But does either one have, like, official recognition as the Holy Grail?
Not officially, no. The Catholic Church hasn't stepped in and said, like, yep, this is it.
So it's still up in the air?
Pretty much, yeah. But there are people who are, like, adamant about it. There's this historian, Dr. Ana Mafi Garcia. She's convinced that the Valencia chalice is the real deal, and she's even, like, challenged the Vatican to recognize it.
Wow, she's going for it.
Oh, yeah. She's not backing down.
It seems like the physical Grail is, well, still a bit of a mystery. But then you have those who think the Grail is more of a concept, right?
Yeah.
Like in Dan Brown's The Da Vinci Code, the whole Mary Magdalene's womb thing.
Right, right. That whole idea kind of stems from this book called The Holy Blood and the Holy Grail.
Okay,
And that book, let me tell you, it really shook things up when it came out.
I bet.
Yeah, I mean, it really shows how the Grail can be interpreted in so many different ways, you know?
Yeah.
Like a physical object, a symbol of divine power, or even a metaphor for something else entirely.
It really seems like the Grail's meaning is as elusive as its location. What about the Knights Templar, though? They were all about the Grail, right? Where do they fit in?
The Templars. Their story is it's one of intrigue, power, and then bam, sudden downfall.
Yeah, what happened there?
Well, there were these warrior monks, you know,
Okay,
and they were tasked with protecting pilgrims in the Holy Land.
makes sense.
Yeah. And in doing that, they amassed a ton of wealth and influence.
Powerful warrior monks, got it.
Mm.
But then what? Why did they vanish so quickly?
Officially, they were accused of heresy.
Heresy, huh?
Yeah, basically beliefs that went against the church.
Ah.
And then King Philip V of France, he had them wiped out.
Why?
Well, they were a threat to his power, plus he wanted their money.
Ah, classic power move.
Yeah.
But thousands of knights, all their resources,
Okay.
just disappeared. Doesn't seem likely.
Right. And that's where those theories of Templar survival come in. Some people believe they went underground.
Underground.
Yeah, like hiding in plain sight, leaving clues.
Like a secret code.
Exactly. For example, there's this place called Dom Prison in France, and there's Templar graffiti there that seems to hint at their secret beliefs. And they even used symbols that are associated with the Grail.
So they were protecting the Grail A&D, hiding in plain sight.
Maybe, yeah. It's pretty fascinating.
Where else might they have gone?
Another place that's interesting is Royston Cave in England. It's full of these mysterious carvings that some believe point to it being a Templar hideout.
A hideout in England.
Yeah, England was like a safe haven for them. They were treated much better there than in France.
So England was kind of like a Templar sanctuary.
In a way, yeah. But that's where it gets tricky.
What do you mean?
Well, if England was already so safe for them, why would they need a secret cave? You know?
That is kind of weird.
Right, so it's possible the cave had a different purpose.
Like what?
Well, maybe it was a prison or a hermitage.
Okay, so we're not sure about Royston Cave. But what about that Shila carving you mentioned before? The one in the cave?
Ah, yes. It's this carving of, like, a naked female figure, and you find similar carvings in other ancient cultures.
Huh.
Yeah, it's kind of suggestive that the site might be older than Christianity, you know? Maybe tied to pagan beliefs.
Wow, each layer we peel back just adds more intrigue. It's like a trail of breadcrumbs through history, leading us closer to the truth, or maybe just more questions.
Right. It's a journey. And speaking of journeys, we got to talk about Sir Arthur Conan Doyle.
Wait, Sherlock Holmes?
The one and only.
What does he have to do with the Grail?
Well, Conan Doyle was more than just a writer, you know? He was a Freemason, a spiritualist, fascinated by the occult. Some people think he might have even hidden Grail secrets in his stories.
Hold on. Are you saying Sherlock Holmes could be on the trail of the Grail?
It's a possibility, right?
Okay, I'm intrigued now. But what makes you think Conan Doyle would hide those kinds of secrets in his work?
Remember the Cottingley Fairies incident?
Vaguely. Remind me.
Conan Doyle totally believed in those photographs, the ones that turned out to be fake. He was convinced they were real fairies.
So he was open to, like, the possibility of hidden worlds and secret knowledge.
Yeah.
That does kind of fit with the whole Grail theme.
Exactly. It shows his mindset. And when you look at some of his Sherlock Holmes stories, like the Musgrave Ritual,
About it.
it's all about this ancient ritual that leads to hidden treasure. But what if that treasure wasn't just gold? What if it was something more symbolic, something connected to the Grail itself?
Okay, you've got my attention.
Yeah.
Tell me more about this Musgrave Ritual. What kind of clues are we talking about?
Well, there's this one line that always stands out to me. For the sake of the trust. Could that trust be referring to something beyond just money? Maybe a secret lineage, a spiritual legacy, or even the Grail itself?
My mind is racing now. Let's break down this ritual. It mentions an oak tree, an elm, compass directions. Are these all symbolic clues leading to the Grail?
The whole text is just full of symbolism. Maybe the treasure wasn't material wealth at all, but something far more profound, something you can't just dig up.
This is amazing.
Yeah.
We've gone from a possible Grail cup to secret societies and now hidden codes in Sherlock Holmes stories. It's like one giant puzzle.
Right. And speaking of puzzles, let's talk about another one. The question of who really wrote Shakespeare's plays.
Wait, are you saying Shakespeare might not have written his own plays?
It's a theory that's been around for centuries, and it's got some pretty compelling arguments.
Okay, now I really need to hear more about this.
Yeah.
So last time we were talking about Shakespeare, and you were saying there are people who think he didn't actually write those famous plays.
Right. There's this whole Shakespeare authorship controversy, and those who doubt he's the real author, well, they point to his background.
What do you mean?
Well, you know, he came from humble beginnings, no fancy education, and they argue that someone with his background, you know, just wouldn't have the knowledge to write those plays.
So they're basically saying the plays are too smart for Shakespeare.
Pretty much, yeah. They
Right.
say it just doesn't add up.
But what kind of proof do they have?
Well, one thing they bring up is that we don't have any original manuscripts.
You mean like handwritten drafts by Shakespeare himself?
Exactly. There's nothing like that.
Huh. That is kind of strange.
Right. It's a big gap in the historical record.
So no smoking gun, so to speak.
Nope. And that's led some to believe that someone else wrote the plays entirely.
Okay, but if Shakespeare didn't write them, then who did? And why all the secrecy?
There are a few top contenders, so to speak. One is this guy, Sir Francis Bacon.
Francis Bacon, the philosopher.
That's the one. He was a big deal in Queen Elizabeth's court, a real intellectual powerhouse.
Right. He definitely had the brains for it. Plus, wasn't he involved with some secret societies or something?
Yeah, he was rumored to be part of some pretty mysterious groups. Adds to the whole intrigue, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
And then there's, wait, who was that other guy? The Earl,
Oh,
right?
yeah. Edward de Vere, the Earl of Oxford. Those who believe he's the real Shakespeare, they talk about his travels, his understanding of court life, and the fact that he dabbled in writing himself.
So we've got a philosopher-statesman and an Earl who like to write poetry. It's like trying to pick the real Shakespeare is as hard as finding the Grail itself.
Aha, it's quite a mystery. But there are arguments for Shakespeare being the author, you know?
Oh, right. There has to be someone out there defending the bard.
Oh, yeah. There are those who are adamant that Shakespeare wrote those plays. And their main point is that he was very much a part of the London theater scene.
So he wasn't just some random guy taking credit.
No, he was an actor, a playwright, the whole deal. He even owned part of a theater company.
Okay, so he was legit.
Yep. His name is on a bunch of theater documents, and then there are people who knew him, fellow actors and writers, who said he was the author.
Well, that's pretty convincing. If it was all a big lie, wouldn't someone have said something back then?
Right. That's what they argue. It seems unlikely that such a huge secret could be kept for so long.
It's a real head-scratcher.
Yeah.
So are we any closer to knowing who actually wrote the plays?
Unfortunately, it's probably a question that won't ever have a definite answer, but I guess that's part of what keeps it interesting, right?
It's like this literary mystery that just keeps going. But let's move on from Elizabethan England for a bit. I want to talk about something else that's shrouded in mystery. The Hagia Sophia.
Ah, the Hagia Sophia. Such an amazing structure. A true blend of history, architecture, and spirituality.
Whenever I picture it, I just think of that massive dome. It's breathtaking.
It's a marvel of engineering, no doubt. They really pushed the boundaries back then.
And it's influenced so many other buildings throughout history.
For sure. You can see its echoes in architecture all over the world.
But the Hagia Sophia is so much more than just a building, right? I mean, it's seen so much history.
Absolutely. It started as a Byzantine cathedral, became a mosque under the Ottomans, and now it's a museum.
A church, a mosque, and a museum, all in one.
It's a symbol of how cultures and religions can intertwine over time, and it's still standing after all these years.
That's incredible. It's like a living, breathing piece of history. But you mentioned hidden details before. What kind of secrets does this place hold?
Oh, there are all sorts of intriguing stories. Remember the weeping column we talked about earlier?
The one that's always moist.
Right, even in the summer heat.
Yeah.
And some people believe it has healing powers.
Wow, really? What else?
And then there are the Christian mosaics that were covered up when it became a mosque. Imagine that. Centuries-old artwork hidden beneath layers of plaster.
It's like a time capsule.
It really is. Oh, and there's one mosaic, the Dacis mosaic. It's caused a lot of controversy.
Why is that?
Because some people think it doesn't depict Jesus, but Apollonius of Tyana,
Wait, who is Apollonius?
he was this figure from ancient times who some people compared to Jesus. He performed miracles and taught about spirituality.
So are we saying the Hagia Sophia might have some connection to alternative views of Christianity?
It's a possibility, right? It shows how complex history can be and how different beliefs can coexist in unexpected ways.
This is getting more and more fascinating. But remember those discoveries they made under the Hagia Sophia? The tunnels and chambers.
Yeah, it turns out there's a whole network of underground spaces beneath the building.
So there's even more to uncover.
Who knows what else they might find down there? The Hagia Sophia is a true mystery, full of secrets waiting to be revealed.
It's amazing to think that a building can hold so much history and intrigue. Okay, let's shift gears a little bit. Let's go to Ireland, the land of those mysterious round towers.
Ah, yes, the round towers. These things have baffled people for centuries.
They're like something out of a fantasy novel. What were they used for?
Well, the most common theory is that they were bell towers or places to hide during Viking raids.
Okay, that makes sense.
But there are problems with that theory. For one, the doorways are way up high, not practical for everyday use.
Right, you need a ladder to get in.
Exactly. And they're not very spacious inside.
So they weren't really built for defense or everyday life. It's like they were designed for something else, something more specialized.
That's the mystery, isn't it? Some think they were used for astronomical observations.
Like ancient observatories.
Yeah, maybe they were aligned with certain stars or constellations.
That's pretty cool. Imagine those ancient people using the towers to study the night sky.
It's a possibility.
Yeah.
And then there's the idea that they were used to harness energy, like the Earth's natural energy.
Energy conduits.
Right. We talked about paramagnetic materials before.
Yeah, and how they might have been used in ancient structures.
Exactly. Maybe the rubble core of the towers was arranged in a specific way to channel energy.
So maybe they're connected to other ancient structures, like the pyramids.
It's possible different cultures might have had similar knowledge about energy and how to manipulate it.
It's amazing to think about the connections that might exist between these ancient sites all over the world. Okay, so we've got astronomical observatories, energy conduits. What else?
Some believe the tower's locations were chosen based on geometric patterns or celestial alignments.
So they might reflect the deeper understanding of the cosmos and how it relates to the Earth.
Right. It suggests a worldview that's very different from our modern perspective.
It's like these towers hold clues to a lost way of seeing the world. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here, from the Holy Grail to Shakespeare to ancient structures. What ties it all together?
I think it all comes back to the human desire to understand the unknown, to seek meaning in the world around us. We're drawn to mysteries, to secrets, to the possibility that there's more to reality than we can see.
It's like we're all searching for something, whether it's a physical object like the Grail or a deeper understanding of ourselves and the universe.
And that search takes us on some pretty incredible journeys through history, myth, and symbolism.
And sometimes the journey itself is more important than the destination.
Exactly. It's about the questions we ask, the connections we make, the new perspectives we gain along the way.
Man, what a deep dive this has been. Holy Grail, Knights Templar, secret societies, Shakespeare, ancient structures. It's amazing how it all seems to connect, you know?
It really is. Like we're piecing together a giant puzzle, and every time we find a piece, it just leads to more questions.
Exactly. Speaking of questions, last time we were talking about Conan Doyle and those Sherlock Holmes stories.
Right. The idea that he might have hidden Grail symbolism in there.
Yeah, especially in the Musgrave ritual. That line about the trust always gets me thinking.
For the sake of the trust, yeah. What if it's not about protecting money or possessions, but something, I don't know, deeper?
Right, like protecting a secret lineage, a spiritual tradition, maybe even knowledge about the Grail itself.
It's like the real treasure is something you can't hold in your hand, something you have to discover within yourself.
It's like the external search for the Grail mirrors this inner journey of self-discovery.
Exactly. It's a theme you see in a lot of different cultures, the idea that true wealth is about knowledge, wisdom, connection to something bigger than yourself.
It's fascinating. But let's go back to the Knights Templar for a second. They were accused of heresy, destroyed, their wealth disappeared. What if that wasn't the end of their story?
We talked about the theory that they went underground, right? Hiding in plain sight, leaving those coded messages, like in Dom prison.
Yeah, the symbols that connect them to the Grail.
Right. Maybe they were protecting something more than just a physical object. Maybe it was a secret, a spiritual truth, something that threatened the powers that be.
So their destruction was a way to cover up their real mission. That sounds like something out of a movie.
It does, doesn't it? And some believe they fled to Scotland, maybe got protection from Robert the Bruce. Others say they might have even gone to the New World, you know, America.
Wow, taking their secrets across the ocean. So many possibilities. And it makes you wonder, did they evolve into other secret societies? Did they pass their knowledge down through the ages?
It's definitely a theory that's captured people's imaginations, and it kind of brings us back to the Shakespeare mystery, too.
Oh, yeah. The authorship controversy.
Yeah.
Could there be a connection between the Templars and Shakespeare?
Well, some think Sir Francis Bacon wrote those plays, and he was rumored to be involved with the Rosicrucians.
The Rosicrucians, right. Another secret society.
Yeah, and they've been linked to earlier groups, even the Templars. So it's possible there's this line of esoteric knowledge that was passed down through these organizations, and maybe it found its way into Shakespeare's works.
So those plays, maybe they were more than just entertainment. Maybe they were a way to share hidden wisdom, challenge the status quo, even spark a new way of thinking.
It's a mind-blowing idea, right? This secret network of knowledge connecting people and ideas across centuries.
This whole deep dive has been incredible, you know? From the physical Grail to the symbolic Grail, from knights to secret societies, from ancient buildings to hidden codes, from Shakespeare to Conan Doyle.
We've explored the unknown, challenged the official stories, and tried to connect the dots between history, myth, and symbolism. And along the way, we've encountered so many fascinating possibilities, so many unanswered questions.
It really highlights that the search for truth is a journey, not a destination.
Exactly. It's about the journey itself, the asking questions, making connections, and seeing things from new perspectives.
It's like we've been given a treasure map. But the real treasure isn't buried at the X. It's the adventure of the search itself.
Well said.
So, to everyone listening, keep digging, keep questioning, never lose that curiosity. The world is full of mysteries waiting to be discovered.
And the joy of discovery is out there for anyone willing to look for it.
That's a great place to wrap things up. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep that sense of wonder alive.